Ryan Talbot, I am not surprised that there are a bunch of people waiting right now for this podcast because I don't know how there's a Bills fan across the United States of America or across the world right now that's going to be able to go to sleep after what I think is the most exciting comeback win I've seen in this stadium since I was right up there for the greatest comeback in NFL history with my dad and my two uncles, over 30 years ago. I mean, this was an absolutely spectacular, epic comeback win for the team, the Buffalo Bills. But I think it's fitting that it happens in a game that pitted Josh Allen against Lamar Jackson. The heated debate that went on all of last season about the MVP, especially late in the year and then in the offseason, and for Josh Allen to carry his team back with the way that Lamar and Derrick Henry put on a display through three quarters was truly special. A lot to get into here on a late night edition of Shout. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm great. That was unbelievable. I think we probably both had to edit our stories there by the end of the game. When you're writing them, you're talking about whether they won the game, lost the game, obviously down 15 points late in the fourth quarter. Didn't look too good for the Bills, but as you said, probably the best game at Highmark Stadium since the comeback game in the playoffs. Just unbelievable. And the Bills, they've done this against the Ravens before. It was a few years ago. I think they were down 20-3 to the Ravens, and then they didn't. The Ravens didn't score again. Bills came back, won that one. So we've seen this before where the Ravens had a comfortable lead. We saw them tonight getting a little bit arrogant, waving to the crowd. If you're Zay Flowers, yelling, "I'm back! I'm playing this one." Some of the things we've seen from the players, and then you saw how shocked they were at the very end.
Yeah, so let's go through the final, sequence of series here. I mean, it really was the tale of about six possessions that really flipped the story of this game. And it started with the Bills getting a stop, right? But even as they forced the punt there with about 9:58 less, about 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, you still felt like there was so much that the Bills had to have go their way to finally be able to come back. I mean, it was 34-19 late in the third quarter. It goes to 40-25 there in the fourth quarter as well. What to you was the most surprising moment of the fourth quarter? Because to me, I mean, I was writing the story. I think I at least one point I tweeted too little too late after one of the Bills scores. And then I had to come back with the Independence Day meme. It's like when Will Smith's sitting there like, I haven't heard no fat lady sing yet. It's like that was kind of the feeling in the stadium. And a bunch of people texted me and were like, how many people left? And I'm like, I'm looking around. I still felt like it was like 90% full. What was the moment in the game that you felt like kind of things flipped? Because Sean McDermott said at his post-game press conference, it was the fumble recovery where he was like, okay, now we have a real chance to go back and make a play.
Yeah, 100%. It has to be the Ed Oliver forced fumble and then the recovery by the Bills, because at that point in time, we had seen Josh Allen and this offense claw their way back, score a touchdown, just for the Ravens then to put up their own scoring drive. I mean, we saw a near stop a few series before that where the Bills had the Ravens in the third and long. It looked like they had Lamar Jackson dead to rights for a sack. He gets around that. He gets first down. Henry scores a touchdown on the next play. Now you're down one score and you're thinking, okay, well, they're going to milk the clock. They're going to keep going with the bread and butter. I mean, the Ravens were averaging, Matt, 9.8 yards per play with about 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So you didn't feel too good about things with the ball back in Baltimore's hands, but Oliver comes up with, I would think, at least his third huge play of the game. He made multiple plays. He was the one guy on this defense that really seemed to show up. So when that happened, it definitely opened the door for the Bills.
The nature of the comeback was so unbelievable, and we see a comment here in the YouTube channel. The Ravens had a 99.1% chance of winning the game with 4:48 left, according to ESPN analytics. And some of the plays that were made, I mean, you think about the ball that Josh Allen threw to Dawson Knox that tips off his hands into the end zone, and Keon Coleman comes flying into the play to make the play and the touchdown to keep this thing going. There's so many little moments, to set up one of the scores late in the game. James Cook, who was pretty much bottled up for the most part over the course of the game. I think he had about 50 yards rushing for the game. He breaks off a 49-yard run to get it down into the red zone, and he sets up a score there, one of Josh Allen's 4 touchdowns in this game. But it's what I started with. I mean, to me, the big story coming out of this game, outside of the defense figuring things out, we're going to get into what transpired over the first 3 quarters on this show as well. But it was Josh Allen refusing to let the Bills lose this game against a team that all week long, all I heard from a national level, even on the other side of things, I had 2 conversations with Baltimore beat reporters and trying to get a sense of what the feeling was like going in this game. Everybody thought this was a superior team in the Baltimore Ravens. That's the sense that I got. And I almost felt like even still with the Bills' refusal to add another big-time weapon for Josh Allen this offseason, it doesn't matter. He finds a way to make enough plays to beat even the greatest teams. I mean, this was everybody's Super Bowl pick, right? The Baltimore Ravens coming in here outplayed the Bills for three quarters. It wasn't enough because Josh Allen was so much more of a superstar in the big moments down the stretch.
He was unbelievable. He was, obviously the star of the game for the Bills, the reason they were able to come back and win this. But, you mentioned there are so many players that stepped up in that crucial crunch time. Ed Oliver, as we already talked about, Keon Coleman, if he doesn't catch that ball that bounces off of Knox's hands on 4th down, that game is pretty much over at that point. And yet he hauls it in. He had a great sideline grab where he, looked like he leapt out of the stadium at one point, catches it, falls to the turf. He made so many grabs for this team. Obviously, he almost scored a touchdown late, which may not have been the best idea. Luckily, got tripped upon the very end, but
got a little
over 100 yards total for him. I'm going to throw another name out there. Jackson Hawes, Matt. When Josh Allen needed a ball late in the game near the goal line, he targets his number 3 tight end, the blocking tight end, who comes up with it and sets up the Bills with the 1st and goal from the 1.
The man himself, Mookie Hawkins, is in the house. Have you caught your breath yet from this thing?
Yeah, they checked my blood pressure. It's gone down now.
It's gone down?
A few more gray hairs, but yeah, it's gone down.
I mean, Ryan, Mookie and I had shared a word, I think sometime in the 3rd quarter, just like perplexed at the Bills' inability to figure out any type of plan to contain Derrick Henry. And then, when it wasn't Derrick Henry, it was Lamar Jackson, whether it be finding Zay Flowers, who had a huge game. What was your perspective in the 4th quarter with what changed for the defense?
Well, Ed Oliver changed for the defense. He went out there and made plays. It seemed like Baltimore was really having their way, whether it was run or pass. Like, take your pick, pick your poison with it. And Bills really didn't have an answer. But, the offense, they just didn't give up. They kept giving the defense a chance, and then the defense finally made a play, and then everything just kind of like aligned at the right time. Getting Keon Coleman involved was so huge. Josh Allen damn near threw for 400 yards today because they were down. They need to have that approach when the game is just starting. And maybe we'll get a different turnout, but, they got to be a little bit more aggressive. Today, they were kind of like passive aggressive and playing a Baltimore team. You could never play that way. But, they snapped out of it. They made some plays and they got the job done.
Ryan, I think a young offensive coordinator, which I still think Joe Brady is, he's still growing and learning and developing, has to understand in a game like this, when your defense doesn't have any answers, the aggressiveness has to get turned up. Now, of course, they come back and win this game. So if I'm Joe Brady listening to this, I'm probably like, well, look at the final score and look how it ended up happening. But I think it was a 99% chance for the Baltimore Ravens to win late in this game. And I think that, to your point, a little bit more of an aggressive approach. I was really taken aback, Ryan. I think it was late in the 3rd quarter, right as it was about to flip to the 4th, and Joe Brady was calling a running play when the Bills got the ball back, down 15 points. And I was just like, you got to turn up the aggressiveness a little bit, Ryan.
Absolutely. And I think there were some boo birds from the crowd as well at that point in time. There were 2 terrible series by the Bills in the first half that really kind of put them in that hole. The Bills scored the touchdown, hold the Ravens to a field goal. And then Joe Brady comes out with 3 straight runs to James Cook, 8 on the first, but then they get stuffed on the next 2. The next series, I think it was pass, another 3 and out. So, sometimes the 3 run plays, you got to keep the ball in Allen's hands. Sometimes you got to mix it up a little bit. Those were some of the growing pains for him. However, it definitely wasn't the offense's, bad night at the office. It would be the defense by far.
All right. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We're still going here for a few more minutes inside Highmark Stadium, where the Buffalo Bills just pulled off the kind of win that's going to be talked about all season. I mean, if you remember last year, Ryan, when the Bills had their big win in Kansas City, Josh Allen with the big run on fourth down to win it, that was playing on highlight reels over and over again. There's a multitude of plays that are going to be just like that from this game. And listen, this is, I want to talk about a bunch of performances for this game, but if we zoom out to a big picture view of this thing, this is really debilitating to a Baltimore Ravens team that now has to really go on what I think is a gauntlet of a schedule. I mean, they're going to play the Chiefs in a couple of weeks. They have some really tough games. I'll bring it up as I'm talking here. But this was a game that, to your point, they thought that they won against Buffalo on the road. To have it flipped like this, this is a really good team, and they're probably going to end up winning a lot of games. But it's just one of those things where for the Bills to flip the script like this, it is a huge moment in the AFC contender race. And also, like, when we get to the end of the season, you start looking at what this thing looks like in terms of home field advantage. This is one that you'll look back on and say the Bills pulled something off that could help them in December and January. And by the way, it's Cleveland, who played tough against Cincinnati this week. Then it's Detroit, who I think will probably bounce back, Kansas City, Houston, the Rams, and then the Bears. It is a really tough start for the Baltimore Ravens.
100%. And, you never want to overreact to week one in terms of wins or losses, but this is a massive win for the Bills in terms of playoff seeding down the road. They have a head-to-head win now over Baltimore, and who knows how much that can loom when it comes to the number 1 seed, number 2 seed in this conference. So from that perspective, this win was massive for Buffalo.
All right, let's get back into breaking down some of the key performances. I want to spend a moment here on Keon Coleman, because I think for a lot of this game, one of the things that I think was frustrating people on the offensive side of the ball was the inability of a lot of guys to get open. I was critical in my post-game column talking about, the Bills, just, again, their inability to get Dalton Kincaid featured more. I mean, at one point I was looking at the snap count. He was playing somewhere around 55% of the snaps in this game. I think that has to get ticked up, especially in a game like this when you really got to put the pressure on and move the ball in the passing game. But it was Coleman who really stepped up. And, there was nobody more bullish on Coleman this summer than us, talking about him, seeing what we saw in the practice field. It had to materialize in a game. And, he made some big plays, some big catches. The touchdown was great. But to me, the defining play for Coleman in this game was getting separation one-on-one against Jair Alexander, who I don't think is still the same Jair Alexander that we saw against Stephon Diggs years ago, but still one-on-one coverage. You saw Jalen Ramsey make a big play for the Pittsburgh Steelers today, capable of those kinds of plays. Keon Coleman dusted him one-on-one on the route. He credited Josh Allen with what he saw Jair Alexander was doing against him to help set him up for a success on that play. But Coleman made the play. He almost scored the touchdown. A huge performance for the Bills' second-round draft pick on the heels. So much is always made of the Keon Coleman, Xavier Worthy conversation. One of the knocks on Worthy coming out of school was, can he stay healthy? He gets banged up, not available for his team. The Chiefs go on to lose in week 1, and I feel like the total opposite of Coleman. He makes big plays when the Bills needed it the most.
Coleman was fantastic. There's no other way of putting this. He, like I said, saved the game with a touchdown grab on fourth down. The play against Jair Alexander was fantastic. Made several grabs, 8 for 112 and a score. That's a great night at the office for a number 1 receiver. That man pretty much won every Amtrak hype train player of the day at training camp. And if it wasn't for Josh Allen throwing for almost 400 yards, you could definitely put Coleman's name in the mix for that again. So he was great. Joshua Palmer, too. I know if you look at the final stat line, might not wow you, but drew a really important pass interference call in the first half, had a big catch in this final drive that set the Bills up in field goal range at that point in time. He stepped up. They had so many guys make key plays for them. And then one other thing too, Matt, we can't forget about this last series before halftime where the Bills set up that field goal with 1 second to go, 25 seconds. Now you look back at that and see how huge that was in the outcome of this game.
We got almost 500 people watching live right now on YouTube. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Shout out to everybody watching us on X. We're almost at 2,500 across all 3 platforms. We really appreciate you hanging out with us early on this Monday night. Monday morning, I should say. We got a super chat here from David Trelizio, one of our insiders. I feel the need to atone. I will never not believe again. How do we win this game, though? Listen, I think that there was definitely reason for angst, reason for anger, questioning the approach of the offseason to have what feels like the same storyline play out. They spent so much time remaking this defensive line, and to have Derrick Henry have the kind of game that he had, I think you have a right to be frustrated if you're a Bills fan. And we're going to get into that part of it in a moment. But before we get there, we're brought to you by Amtrak, whose Empire service offers frequent departures daily from Niagara Falls, Buffalo, all the way to New York City. Stops include Rochester, Syracuse, Utica, Albany, and so many more within New York State. No middle seats, plenty of legroom. Kids ride 50% off. And we got to hand out our Amtrak hype train player of the game. Ryan, it's easy to give it to Josh Allen. Okay, it's super easy to give it to Josh Allen. And honestly, on a day like this, in a game like this, he definitely deserves it. But I do want to shout out Ed Oliver and give him that award, because to me, he was the one guy consistently throughout the game that was making impact plays on defense, whether it was tackle for a loss on Derrick Henry stopping a drive, whether it was early in the game sacking Lamar Jackson after the Bills come out and score in the first possession to hold them for a field goal when it seemed like Baltimore was getting their offense really going. He flew out of the locker room first out of there. He didn't really want to talk to the media. He seemed like he was still kind of a little bit pissed off about what happened in this game. But in terms of a guy making plays, this was a superstar performance from Ed Oliver, buried within a really disappointing effort from the Bills defense for most of this game. And I think all of them would tell you that. They figured some things out. We'll talk about that in a second. But I was really impressed with Ed Oliver tonight.
Yeah, great pick. And if we're not giving it to Josh Allen, we already talked about Keon Coleman and how deserving he is. I'll go Matt Prater. Prater comes in, on the team less than a week. Had been sitting on the couch, essentially, was not with any team this summer, practicing on his own to stay ready in the event that he signed on somewhere, coming off of a major knee injury or torn meniscus last year early in the season. Comes in, makes every single kick that the Bills ask him, including that game winner, in a frantic, run off the field if you're the offense, get the special teams on. Now, mind you, there was a decent amount of time, but that's not easy, too, when you're a kicker trying to get in your groove and routine. So Prater coming up huge for the Bills, with the team having to put Tyler Bass on the IR earlier this week.
Very interesting situation brewing at kicker, Ryan, because, Tyler Bass is the guy, right? You'd believe for this team. They drafted him. They gave him an extension. But Matt Prater, at 41 years old, comes in off the couch and delivers really big-time kicks in a big-time spot. How much are you buying into the potential kicker controversy, especially if you think about it over the next couple of weeks, if he continues to really ball out? Now, let me give my thoughts on it first. I don't necessarily think there's a kicker controversy just yet, but what I think the Bills have at their disposal is you have a guy in Tyler Bass who's dealt with a pelvic groin issue now for weeks, and that's something with a kicker you want to put on ice. And I think in the regular season, at least, you can give Tyler Bass all the time he needs to get that thing back to absolutely 100%. You don't have to rush him back. You can have, take a look at Matt Prater over the course of the next maybe 2 months, maybe even 3 months, and see where Tyler Bass is as you move through the season. I don't think the Bills are going to have to be in any rush to get him back. The one concern I have is at 41 years old and coming off the injury that he had, what is the distance constrictions on Matt Prater? Sean McDermott said today that they were looking in the 45-yard range for him getting into that zone to give him a chance to make a field goal. If he can't make a 60-yard field goal, that's going to probably put you in a disadvantage. I think, listen, Tyler Bass had his struggles last season, but in the playoffs, he was really good. So I don't think the Bills are anywhere close to being ready to give up on him.
No, I mean, the long distance kicking aspect of it alone. Now, mind you, Bass has had some hiccups in his time here in Buffalo. Redeemed himself late last year, starting with that 61-yard game winner against Miami. But you do find yourself holding your breath there a little bit. And as for Prater, he doesn't have the leg that Bass has, obviously, but the NFL is allowing teams to bring in like the worked footballs, the footballs that have kind of been broken in this year, which I think is going to lead to some teams kicking a 70-yard field goal in the regular season, and not with ease necessarily, but those broken in footballs are a little bit easier to kick. I think the Bills having some of those for Prater can lead to him maybe getting into the 50s comfortably at some point once he gets into a groove.
I want to talk about, we talked about Ed Oliver. I want to talk a little bit about Joey Bosa real quick, because I got a chance to talk to him quickly at his locker stall after the game. And I mean, walking up to him, he literally looked like he was on cloud nine, like trying to just gather his thoughts. And the first thing out of his mouth is like, I feel like I'm dreaming right now. I feel like I've never been happier after a win. I mean, just think about the storybook kind of moment that must have been for him after a career of just disappointing losses in big games, some really tough seasons, the injury history, to go out and have a game like this. And listen, I think that moment for him against Lamar Jackson on that third down, I don't necessarily fault him. I mean, he did his job. He got pressure on him. He was right in the neighborhood. Sometimes Lamar Jackson is just so hard to deal with. I think he ended up with 3 pressures in the game, according to Next Gen Stats. I'm going to have to look at that stat, and we'll come back with a show tomorrow to get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty once we're able to watch this thing back and hear more from the coaches. We'll hear from Bobby Babich tomorrow on what went into the first 3 quarters. But I think for the most part, you like the early look at Joey Bosa. I think it's going to have to be better as they move forward. But I also think this is a good jumping off point, and we could see him really get more comfortable in this defense and what they're asking him to do over the course of the season. I thought he played more than I expected him to play too.
Yeah, and he looked good for the most part. The only issue he had early on in the game was crashing down a little bit too much on the option plays, which let Lamar Jackson kind of run wild on the outside. Eventually, though, he settled in, had a lot of pressures, had a really good game. We've talked a lot about the good, though, Matt. Let's talk really quick about my biggest issue after this game. And if it's not Bobby Babich, it's the safety room. That was an atrocious performance from Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop. Rapp looked like he had cement blocks on his feet running at times last night, terrible angles, going against Derrick Henry. Bishop blitzing from almost 13 yards back. Some of the tackle attempts, getting stiff-armed into the turf by Henry. These guys had a awful day at the office, and it's one game. Again, I've said it before. You don't want to overreact to one game, but it's worrisome at least.
Sean mentioned after the game that he was really happy with the way that Bobby Babich responded in the fourth quarter and figured some things out, and how he called the defense down the stretch to frustrate and confuse Lamar on a few plays, and obviously being able to figure out Derrick Henry to a better degree. But you're right, like through the first 3 quarters, this can't continue to be a trend. I mean, this was literally through 45 minutes a replay of the regular season game last year. And all we were told, I know Larry Ogunjobi is out and I know Michael Hoyt is out, but your second level is completely healthy. And you're going to mention what you mentioned about the safeties, and I think you're onto something there. I also think this was a really bad game for Terrell Bernard. Obviously, he rectified some things at the end with the way that he was able to recover that fumble. Big play in a big moment. But you need all of those 3 players to be better and to be able to contain Derrick Henry, especially after he breaks off big run after big run. It's like, I remember a couple years ago, the big Derrick Henry run on, I think it was like a Thursday night game, or I can't remember what it was when he was with the Titans. He still had himself a pretty good game, but the massive explosive plays, it felt like the Bills were able to figure that out. It just felt like he was an avalanche that kept coming and they had no answers for him. And listen, it wasn't all just the safeties. I thought Daquan Jones was pushed around quite a bit, especially on a couple of the big runs. There are serious question marks, and people always come back. And, even within the building, I think that there was a little bit of frustration at times when I asked about, are you big enough to deal with some of these bigger run games when they go with heavy packages and they have a running back like Derrick Henry? And some people like to scoff at that idea. And you look at a game like this, they probably could have used a little bit more size. They went in and they drafted Deion Walker. It's his first NFL game. I think he'll get better as well. But right now, if you're setting up a playoff matchup against this team, the Baltimore Ravens, this is the major concern. What they're able to do up front against this run game and the tackling at the second and third level, especially starting with the safeties.
Yeah, not to get ahead of ourselves, but next week they have the Jets, and Justin Fields is nowhere near the overall quarterback that Lamar Jackson is, but he's similar in that he can use his legs to run. He was actually very accurate today in week 1 against Pittsburgh. They had a great 1-2 attack in terms of the run game. They were running the ball well. If they watch this game against Buffalo, they're going in, they might be licking their chops a little bit, saying, okay, we can run the ball on this team. So that's something to kind of monitor as well. What corrections can the Bills make in 1 week? Because they're going against another offense that's going to be very similar. And one more shout out real quick, Matt, Dorian Strong. I thought he had a really good game. The defensive holding penalty in the first half I thought was ticky-tack. I thought it was a solid job by Zay Flowers. There was one play where he got lost. It was a crossing pattern. I think it was Flowers, not Bateman, went across, and that was his guy. He kind of got lost. He was going one way. He turned around. But for the most part, you didn't hear his name in this game. And for a 6th-round pick going against Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, I thought he had a very nice night.
Speaking of the cornerbacks, talking to Christian Benford after the game, he was asked about the DeAndre Hopkins touchdown, which was about as special as it gets. I mean, a one-handed catch. I thought the coverage was pretty good. He got beat a little bit, but he recovered. Christian Benford's response to that, he's like, let him try that again next time we play. And so, like, you know, very confident Christian Benford that probably wants that matchup back again, once again. I thought, you know, James Cook made a big play in this game, right? Setting up one of those touchdowns, but it was really Josh Allen's playground today, and he looked every bit the part of the MVP. Ryan, we're brought to you by Amtrak. We're also brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets. Did you know that is the return of the red zone?
I did know that. We talked about it recently. I'm excited.
Well, I was just asking, making sure that you're up to speed on what's going on over at Tops Friendly Markets. And listen, the big thing here is I'm just trying to get the talking points out because I don't have this down in my brain quite yet because this is our only second read of the top season. But right now, you can win the GOAT, the greatest of all tailgates in the Tops Red Zone raffle. Shop from over 25 fan favorites and get unlimited savings when you purchase brands like Coca-Cola, Heinz, King's Hawaii, Pepsi, and much more. To find out more, visit topsmarkets.com/redzone. Ryan, what a game. Go get some sleep, Bills Mafia. I know it was a long one. It's going to be a fun week to break this thing down. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll hear from the coaches. We'll do another podcast. We'll fire it up from Highmark Stadium. 41-40. Buffalo Bills start off 1-0. What a way to start it. What a way to end it.